Hi everybody, welcome to the webinar today as part of the City and Guilds Digital Week. Thank you very much for joining us. Today's webinar is all about the City and Guilds SkillsZone platform. Just before I get into that though, I would firstly like to start by introducing myself. My name is Samantha Upton and I work for City and Guilds as a Digital Solutions Manager. There is my colleague and I, my colleague Simon Berry, and we support customers with the City and Guilds digital systems, not only from a technical demonstration perspective, but also with training and implementation. Feel free to follow us both on LinkedIn and Twitter, where we post quite a few updates on enhancements to the systems, as well as lots of things that are coming out with City and Guilds. As part of our digital team, we couldn't possibly run all of these systems without the support of two other teams. We have our lovely support team who are based in Scotland. And they are our dedicated support. They're available Monday to Friday 9 till 5, and they're there to support with any technical based questions that customers may have. May just be about you know, where do I do this or where do I do that? That team is there to support. We also have a development team. So we don't want the systems to remain the same. We want to update them and enhance them all the time. So for all our different products, we do have digital product managers who are responsible for the roadmap and ultimately how we enhance the systems. You'll notice this week that we are doing a lot of updates around apprenticeships for learning assistant, and that's because we've got some great new enhancements that have come or are coming down the line. So our product manager, Kirsten Train-Ward, is going to talk about those a little later on. Okay. So I'm sure you've all seen the agenda, but just to let you know that there is still time to sign up for the webinars should you wish to. We are running smart screen updates. We're running updates around learning assistant, as I mentioned earlier. We're talking about maths and English support for apprenticeships, and we're also talking about digital credentials. Lastly, the Coming Soon webinar, we're going to have a guest speaker, Brad Lewis, who is from Get My First Job, and they're going to talk about one of our newest ventures, which is a platform called Talent Portal. Okay, so why is digital technology in education so important? Well, the world is evolving, and ultimately, over the last few years, we've seen a number of new platforms arise for young individuals to use. The World Wide Web was actually only created in 1990, so 27 years on, and look how much we're actually using that. 2.4 million emails are actually sent every second. So that's 74 trillion emails are actually sent per year. In terms of Skype, I know that I use Skype for business, and we actually make up to 3 billion minutes of calls per day. Our young learners are becoming quite used to social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and as you can see there, the numbers of individuals on those kind of platforms are really high. The SkillsZone platform, which I'm going to go through a little bit later, does have a social element to it, and I think that's really nice because what we're trying to do is provide individuals with platforms that hopefully they're quite used to already. So City and Guilds have developed lots of innovative and intuitive teaching and learning platforms, and they're there to support digital learners every step of the way. They're compatible with lots of different forms of devices. You could use them through internet browsers, and for Learning Assistant, we also have an app. However, for the City and Guilds SkillsZone platform, we've invested highly in the technology so that if you are using it on mobile phones, laptops or iPads, the system fits really nicely to the screen, so you're not having to stretch the screen or reduce it all the time. So we are quite a digital group, we have Digital Me. They specialise in digital credentials. Earlier on, I just mentioned Get My First Job. They're actually recently launched Talent Portal, which is again another online system designed for recruitment of apprentices. And then, like I said, as part of City and Girls, we have Learning Assistant, which is our e-portfolio, SkillsZone, SmartScreen, a host of resources. So I know when you logged onto the webinar, we asked you if you were happy for us to contact you afterwards. For those of you who have said that you are, then we will be giving you a call, just double checking that there aren't any other questions we can ask as part of the webinar today, just so that we can keep it quite short. I won't actually be answering any questions on the webinar. However, what I will do is any questions that you can ask through the chat functionality, we will follow up on those with you afterwards. Likewise, we will drop you an email or give you a call where one of our dedicated digital team will get back to you. But if you do want to contact us, then all those details are there. Okay, so I'm going to just move on to the actual platform itself now. So the SkillsZone platform has basically been designed to inform and teach and learn about the critical skills that are needed for employment, other than, of course, understanding how to do that particular job. These could be skills like communication, self-development, innovation. Self-development been broken down into things like self-analysis, independent learning, stress management. This system could be used for individuals whether they are a technical-based learner and you're looking at supporting the skills that they'll learn during their work placement, and to ultimately gather up experience for the competency-based interview that they're more than likely to have. Or alternatively, it could be used for apprenticeships as a value-added platform. A lot of the apprenticeships at the moment, the new standards are looking for support in terms of behaviours, and you'll notice that quite a few of those are covered today. So it's not only allowing you as this provider to support that learner with their technical journey throughout that apprenticeship, but also assisting them to become quite an all-rounded employee. So let me just log into the system. Okay, so first things first, I thought I would log in as a learner and show you a little bit about what that platform looks like. You can see here that the very first thing you see when we actually log into the system is an introduction video to the SkillsZone. So instead of you as the tutor having to introduce the system, we have a 6-minute video here that takes the learner through all the different benefits of the platform, from the different components to its use, and then ultimately what they get out of at the end of it, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail in a minute, which is actually a digital credential. Now, for those of you who are quite new to digital credentials and not quite sure what they are, I am going to cover those in a little bit of detail today in terms of how they look on our digital CV within this system. However, my colleague Lorna will actually be running a digital credentials webinar at some point throughout this week, a couple of points throughout this week. So feel free to sign up to that to hear even more and why they are very much beneficial. Okay. So logging into the SkillsZone platform, this is actually what it looks like. You can see here that there are a number of different components. Ultimately, your eyes quite naturally focus on this wheel in the middle. This is where the learner will be doing the majority of their independent learning about skills such as self-development, communication, workplace literacy, digital skill, enterprise, delivering results, and innovation. You can see at the bottom here that this is actually on 2 different levels. So we have work ready skills and expert. So the really nice thing about this platform is you can stretch and challenge the learner. So if you have an individual who learns quite quickly, or alternatively you're quite confident that they do in fact have self-development skill, they can consume the content with Work Ready, and then you can progress them on to Expert once you've awarded them with their digital credential. Now you'll also see that there's a few other components. We have My Challenges at the top, which is a bit of an added component for the SkillsZone. This year it's all based around British values. The idea is that the learner will write a blog. They can do it as part of a team. So again, the idea will be is that they're building up a lot of the skills, communication, team working, whilst working on that really important subject. We then have the My CV, which I'm going to go into a little bit more detail in a bit, but that is an online digital-based CV with hyperlinks in there to the digital credentials and all the evidence around why they've actually been awarded. Something a little bit different to your standard paper-based CV. You'll then notice that we have the skills checker. So this is probably one of the things that I would advise that a learner does initially when they log into the system. The skills checker is a little bit like an initial or diagnostic assessment, and it allows the individual to say what they feel they are good at in terms of these skills, and therefore the areas that they perhaps need to focus on initially, and those ones that they'll focus on later down the line. You can take the skills checker as many times as you want as an individual. What we advise is that the learner perhaps takes it at the beginning of their journey and at the end, so that you can show the difference in terms of that distance travelled and in terms of that confidence build. You'll then notice that we have the Be Your Own Boss section. The Be Your Own Boss section is all about, it has lots of videos in here. If I just click into it, that talks about becoming an entrepreneur. So many of you have probably had learners turn around to you and say, I would love to run my own business when I'm older. And that's what that is about, is telling them that yes, there are an awful lot of benefits to having your own business, being very independent, being an entrepreneur. But ultimately there's a lot of challenges that come with that as well, and you have to work very, very hard. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll notice that we've got the higher project qualification. This is an additional point of the SkillsZone, but it is something that would be offered as part of the City and Guilds Tech Pack. For more information on the City and Guilds Tech Pack, which comprises your technical qualification, the SkillsZone, and the higher project qual, please contact your business manager, or again alternatively email directsales@cityandguilds.com. And then in the top left hand corner we have the work placement section. So work placement obviously very important as part of that technical learning and full-time learner journey. And there's lots of resources in there, a lot of which actually relate back to this wheel. Okay. On the right hand side, there's a number of things that we do for engagement purposes on this platform. You'll notice that we have a leaderboard. One of the things that learners or young individuals are becoming quite accustomed to at the moment are things like games, gamification, where ultimately you can gain what we call XP points for your use of the system. So the idea would be is that the more the learner does, the more social they are on the system, the higher they climb up this leaderboard, which fingers crossed should drive their engagement. Some centres that have been using the system already have done, have published this at the end of the month, who's the top of that leaderboard, therefore, who's engaging with the platform the most. On the right-hand side, we also have the digital credentials, so we actually have open badges. You can see there that I've actually gained 2 badges on this platform, so my self-development and communication badges at the Work Ready level. The expert badges look a little bit different. They are in black, mostly black and then red. And again, these are something that can be shown on the CV, but ultimately for the learner, it's that instant gratification that they've been doing something really, really well on this system. The next time they log in after the tutor's actually awarded with that, it pops up on screen to say, congratulations, you've been awarded with your open badge, which again should hopefully drive that engagement a little bit. So I thought today we would show you the self-development section. So even though we have the 7 different skill areas, each of these skills is then broken down into further subject areas. So in total, there's 24 mini subject areas as part of those 7 skills. To show you what I mean by that, if I just come into here, you'll notice that we have self-development at Work Ready or at Expert. This one at Work Ready, you can see that I've already consumed 100% of the content because the bar is completely green. It's broken down into self-analysis, self-motivation, using feedback, independent learning, and also managing stress. Now, the idea is that the learner needs to explore the content in these skill areas, have a go at using these skills in real life, whether that is as part of their technical qualification and perhaps you're using this system as a little bit of a flipped learning device or for independent learning, or alternatively it's as part of that apprenticeship. So when they are working perhaps out on site or in a salon, they're putting these skills such as self-analysis into practice. Okay. So let's have a look. So if we come down to the bottom, I'm going to click on this one here that says managing stress. Now you'll notice that there underneath that it breaks it down into discover, think, explore, discuss, and also reflect. Now if I just come back out to self-development and I come in and click on using feedback, you can again see that using feedback is also broken down into discover, think, explore, discuss and reflect. So hopefully if you are intending on using this as an independent learning platform, it should be quite clear to the learner after perhaps a little bit of tuition at the beginning, the format that they're going to be working through every time. So it says there at the top that in terms of using feedback, engage with the feedback. I know how to listen and accept feedback in a composed manner on my performance. I'm able to think about what I need to do to maintain or improve my performance. So underneath, the idea would be that the learner watches a video. Unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the sound today. Okay, but the idea is that this particular scenario, this individual here is a learner. She's actually tiling or going to be tiling a floor. The idea is that she actually boxes herself into a little bit of a corner, and the gentleman that's working with her provides with feedback about her technique, how she's doing, and then she has to do everything a second time and basically learn from that feedback. Now, the videos can vary. There can be acted out scenarios such as this. We try and use a wide variety of professional examples, whether it be from this, animal care settings, nursery settings. We've also got some hair and beauty learners that are talking about things like financial awareness. We've got cartoon videos which are really short and snappy clips that are then that they're really engaging. They're there for, you know, to really capture the learner's attention. So the learner would watch the Discover video. They then move on to the bottom where they can actually comment. Okay. The idea would then be is that learners can reply to each other, they can like each other's comments. Again, something that, you know, is quite common on a lot of the platforms that they're using, but hopefully again it drives that level of engagement. The reason that we decided to make the platform quite social as well as, you know, for that engagement is also because one of the things that sometimes can affect a learner in becoming employable or alternatively staying in employment can be things like their digital footprint. Because even if they're not necessarily behaving in perhaps an inappropriate manner face to face, you know, their digital footprint can be something that really affects an individual getting a job. Before I worked for City and Guilds, I used to work in recruitment and I used to run assessment days, and I used to invite individuals along to that assessment day, and before doing that and before giving them a phone interview, after receiving their personal statement whilst applying for that job, then I would also Google them and have a look at their digital footprint, and did they look like the kind of candidate that I wanted to invite along to that day. So the idea is that the learners can use quite a social platform, and as a tutor or a mentor, you would guide them through using this system. Okay, and perhaps explain to them why, not necessarily, for using this for things other than education, if they were doing that in a real life, setting, how that could perhaps affect their employment chances. So once they've watched the video, they generally last about 2-3 minutes, never any longer than that. You can see here this is 3 minutes and 6 seconds. They then move on to Think. Now, Think actually asks them a couple of different questions, so they're not so passive with the video. They click on the answer and submit the answer. You can see all of the answers that they make to these on your Tutor platform. Okay. We then move on to Explore, and Explore has lots of different resources in here, from PDFs through to quizzes. If I just come on to this one, okay, it says to open the content. And this, as you can see here, is all about accepting feedback. So feedback can be about things you did well, praise, or things you can improve on. Accepting feedback is a skill that involves listening properly. Okay, so then it questions the learner about their understanding. So if someone praises you, how do you feel? Okay, when you receive criticism, do you? So it's allowing them to self-analyse, I suppose, how they normally receive and accept criticism. And at the end, we give them a detailed breakdown about if perhaps they say, actually, I don't receive it very well, advice around how they could perhaps deal with that a little bit better. Okay. After they've worked through all of those, and you'll notice at the top that it says that they can add their own content, they do gain XP points for adding their own content. Again, tutors can manage, view all of these things that the learner's actually been adding. Tutors can also add their own content. A lot of centres have been using it to contextualise resources, so add in perhaps documentation or web links on using feedback, but based around that particular curriculum area. We then move on to discuss. And discuss is where the individual can answer a question, okay, and then they can write their own feedback. The idea, again, is that they can learn from each other. They then move on to reflect. And reflect is all about explain how you have shown. So again, whether it's a technical, full-time based scenario, or alternatively as part of their apprenticeship, the idea is that the learner would come up with examples of where they've shown those skills before. Okay. Now, once they've worked their way through the whole of the self-development section, so, discover, reflect, think, etc., for each of the individual areas, they can then come down to the bottom and there'll be a button that highlights here that says request your open badge. That request goes through to the tutor, and the tutor can decide whether to award that or not. Now, in terms of experience, again, of those who have been using the system, we find that some are using it for curriculum-based tutors. They then may have secondary tutors who are perhaps learning mentors or employment development coaches that are actually using this system to support, again, that learner's employability journey. So, the next thing that I want to show you is the work placement section, because whilst they learn about the skills, if they're not as part of an apprenticeship, then we want them to be able to put those skills within the wheel into practice. So as you can see here, we've got lots of quizzes about making the most of your placement. We've got a learner here, Lizzie, who did her work placement with City and Guilds, and she's talking about the benefits of that. But then we also have the learner logbook, and this is something that we've received some really nice feedback about. So if I scroll down here, so you can see the purpose of the logbook is to record information about yourself and the employer, decide what you would like to achieve on your work placement and share this with your employer. So in other words, to set some SMART targets, perhaps around those skills that they've learned about within the wheel. To record what you did and how you did it. But the reason for that is if they are a full-time learner and they're, again, not in an apprenticeship but come out of education and look to apply for a job, then the likelihood is that that job may be kind of competency-based questions. So if you think about, for example, an employer saying, we work with lots of different clients, it's really, really important that you understand what good communication is. Tell me your example of good communication and where you've demonstrated it well before. And to answer that question when you've not necessarily thought about recording where you've shown those skills before could be really difficult for a young learner. So this is the idea of this logbook. We did work with employers to develop this system. The reason being is that employers were saying that it's absolutely fabulous that young learners are coming out of education with their certificates, but ultimately what we're looking for is an individual who doesn't just know how to do that job, but can also self-develop, someone who we don't have to constantly be guiding, someone who I can put in front of a number of my clients and I would be quite confident that they could communicate well, all those kind of things. Likewise, again, for your apprenticeships, just because the learner has been accepted into that job, they'll be learning about these key skills whilst on that job. So it's a way of helping that journey and supporting that understanding throughout that apprenticeship. Okay, so you can see here it's talking about identifying your personal development expectations, setting your objectives, and then underneath at the bottom it allows you to record a learner diary. And if I completely scroll down to the end, oh, here we go. It talks about the different skills that are in the wheel and how it would be great if they could come up with examples of where they've shown speaking to influence, self-analysis, self-motivation, using feedback, etc. Okay. It is a editable PDF. Okay, so it can be downloaded, saved, and then as you can see from here, you can reattach the latest version into the system, which the tutor can actually see. So a lot of people normally ask me, what is the biggest benefit for a learner about this system? And as much as learning about the skills is really important, I think it's brilliant if they can express that they've actually learnt about those particular skills well. So you'll notice the My CV section at the top. There is a video for the learner about how to build that CV. And then underneath we come in and we click Create New. Now, they would title the CV appropriately about the job that they were applying for. Perhaps they're applying to become an apprentice, and that is the title that they actually type in there. Underneath at the bottom, you'll notice that coming soon, our development team are working on this at the moment. There's going to be lots of different CV templates, so they can actually choose what they want that digital CV to look like instead of having just the one. Then we come in and we click on Create New. Okay, now for the learner, I personally think that this is really, really easy to use in terms of writing a CV. It's really clear, it's really concise. You can see that for the learner's work experience, they come in here and they literally just type in the company name, the role, the duration, and the description. They click Add Work, and in doing so, it automatically drops that into the CV. They can also type in their skills. They can add in their qualifications and training. Now, they don't have to do all of this in one go, so they can start building the CV, build it throughout their career. The other thing with the SkillsZone is that the CV will actually follow the learner, so even when they've left you in education, they will still be able to access the CV. They then come in and describe themselves a little bit, similar to the personal statement that you would normally put on top of your CV. And as you can see, then you then have the option to add in those digital badges and digital credentials. And by clicking Add, that then gets added onto your CV. Tutors can endorse the learners, so you can see here we've had an endorsement from the Tutor Platform. Again, the learner can choose whether they want to add those in. And lastly, they can put in any references that they've gained either throughout working on that apprenticeship or alternatively throughout their work placement. Now, as you can see here, it's literally just added in my endorsement and my open badge, as those were the things that I choose to enter before. If I come back to my CV list, I just want to show you one that I created a while back. You can see here you can make as many as you want. And this is what it will look like. Okay, now you'll notice at the bottom that you can actually publish this CV, so you can publish it through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can also print it and download it as a PDF. But one of my favourite bits is that the individual can actually just come in and email that potential employer. The employer will receive this basically through a hyperlink that they'll click on the email, and it will open up through the internet on their computer. Now, obviously taking away things like the on buttons, but the CV looks so smart, and it's something a little bit digital, that instead of your Word document based CV, that actually that learner's doing something digital. Again, another great skill that employers are actually looking for. Now, if we come in and click on View More, underneath at the bottom, you'll notice that we've got View Criteria and also View Evidence. If I come in and click on the criteria, this is the criteria that the tutor will look at when they are coming to award the badge. You'll notice that it's saying that the learner should be able to know their communication style and change it depending on who they're speaking to. Communicate technical information in a range of different ways. So it's great that when the employer comes into this, they can say, oh, let me have a look at this. I wonder what this is. And they can go in and click View More and actually view all of that criteria. So it's a great endorsement for that learner, and something tangible, that they can really prove that instead of just saying, I'm a good communicator, they're really saying, no, let me show you, I can prove that I'm a good communicator. Look what was awarded to me by my training provider or by my college, endorsed by City and Guilds. Okay. Now you can also view the evidence. The evidence could be things like that. So when the tutor's awarding the badge, they have an opportunity to upload about 4 or 5 different pieces of evidence. That could be an MP4 file, so it could be you know, an audio file, or it could be a Word document. So, for example, just whilst I'm logging into the Tutor platform, I had a centre say to me the other day that actually they had a completely mixed group of learners from, you know, kind of age 20 through to age 60. And the older learner was really struggling with using the computer. Let me just log in. So the older learner was really struggling with using the computer, and the young learner went over and said, right, this is how you do this is how you do that, and really supported that individual. Now that was a great example of team working. And perhaps if she could have videoed that or done an audio for it, you know, should both candidates have been happy with that, or alternatively she could have just written up that on a document as, you know, an endorsement. That would have been some great evidence to put against one of those badges to truly prove that in fact that learner did have great team working skills. So this is the Tutor Platform. As part of your Tutor Platform, you do have a skills portal as well. So, you know, for delivering this in perhaps a classroom setting, that's great to introduce the system to your learners. In terms of managing learners, it's really easy. All you simply need is first name, surname, and email address. You can upload that through just individually typing in the emails, or alternatively via a CSV file. The idea would be that you would assign those learners to particular groups. Makes it a lot easier when we come down to the performance optimizer when I show you all of the tracking facilities, because again, you can actually track that by groups. Likewise, at the top you'll notice that we actually have a learner progress report, which can be downloaded in a CSV file. It will provide you with a long list of learner names, how much of the percentages of the work ready and expert they've actually completed, along with how many badges they've gained and the total amount of time that they have spent on this system. Okay, now open badge requests will come through and look something a little bit like this. You can come in and click on See Request, and you can view all of the skills criteria for why you should be awarding that badge, along with viewing the learner activity. So we can view when they watched the Discover video, the answers that they gave to think. We can move on to Explore, Discuss, so we can see all the discussion statements. But the main one you want to be looking at is the Reflect statement at the end, because this is the one where they're saying that they have experiences of using that skill. Okay. Now, you will know that individual from their from working with them as part of their apprenticeship, or alternatively from working with them on their technical certificate. And you will look to award that badge not only based on the content that they've consumed within this platform, but whether you do truly feel that they have a great understanding of what good communication is. Underneath at the bottom, you can see that you accept or you decline that request. If you decline it, you have to put in some feedback. So perhaps it's, I can see you've only spent a couple of minutes on the platform. Go back and revisit it, please, and do everything again. Alternatively, it can be accepting the request, and underneath at the bottom, this is where you can upload and attach that evidence. Okay. Now, you can moderate all the comments that are on the system. So again, the social aspect of the platform, you can see who's been, how many comments there are, and if you click on this, you can see who's been commenting and what the comments were. You can also see if any individuals have reported each other's comments, and you can choose to remove those should you need to. One of my favourite things on this system, especially from a perspective for full-time learners, is the tutor notes section. We've developed a lot of lesson plans in here that really help you for the learner to get the most out of the system. Okay, so if I come into here and click on self-development, it's just loading here at the bottom. Okay, and if I just scroll down, you can see here that it tells me how long each of the sections will take to complete. But it also provides me with lots of good classroom activities around each of those skills. So you can remember earlier I showed you self-development, it had self-analysis, independent learning, all those kind of skills. Well, you can see here we've provided you with examples of classroom ideas for self-analysis, whether those be individual activities, pair work, classroom work. Okay. Now, one of the centres that I'm working with who is using this system really, really well, they have actually, this is within a full-time learner setting, they've timetabled the SkillsZone, and they have decided that they are going to deliver part of that, part of those skills, so discover, think, explore and discuss. They're then bringing the learner back into the classroom. Those learning mentors are working through these kind of activities with those individuals. The learner is then going away on reflecting where they've used that skill before, and then are going away and claiming their open badge. Okay. So that's showing independent learning, that's showing flipped learning, that's showing, use of digital technology. And then ultimately what the learner is getting out at the end of it is really good understanding of the skill. They've learnt by discussing it with their peers, they've learnt through independent learning, but they've also learnt through use of classroom activities as well. Okay. There's lots of help videos on the system, so again, as part of mine and Simon's training, we will direct you towards the help videos. We'll also support you through things like webinar or alternatively face-to-face as well. Underneath at the bottom we have the performance optimizer. Now this is the last thing that I want to show you, but it just shows how easy it is to track. Now it's showing here a behaviour index, so this works on a red, amber and green system. You can see this particular learner, which is just one of our demo accounts in this instance, has really high portal access. They've consumed quite a bit of the content, 100% of innovation, as you can see there. You can do interventions with your learners, so if you can see that they're not accessing the system, you can contact them via this system. We can see which badges that they've already gained, but this is one of my favourite bits. So, you're going out to view a number of learners on site, or alternatively, you've got learners coming into the classroom in 5 minutes' time. You've set them lots of independent learning and you want to see how much they're actually engaging. Now, this is actually showing us the system, and as you can see, those individuals' names are actually popping up at the top here. The ones in green, very much on track, are engaging with the system. The ones down the bottom in red and amber are the ones who are struggling. So from a tutor perspective, it gives them a fabulous overview of which candidates are doing really well and which ones are struggling. The system also fully tracks every single little bit of work that that learner's doing. So if you are setting this as a independent learning platform, if that individual is going away and working on this as part of their apprenticeship, perhaps support of that 20% off the job, based around obviously those specific behaviours, then you can track fully how much time that learner's actually spent on the system. If they log in and log straight back out, it will say learner logged in at this time, logged out at that time. Okay. So that is this is the SkillsZone platform really. So hopefully, as you can see, it's supporting things like your digital delivery, your flipped learning. It's great as a, for tracking, but also for that digital credentials to ensure that, the learner is truly getting a great outcome out of the system. Really assists the learner in terms of those employability skills. Like I said, we did work with employers to develop this because individuals, those employers are looking for individuals that are all-rounded individuals that don't just have that technical knowledge of how to do that job, but have all these skills that ultimately help promote their business, that ensure repeat custom, that make sure that they don't have to, constantly be guiding that individual and still teaching them, but they can work independently, they can work as part of a team. So if you would like further information on the SkillsZone, we will be sending out the recording afterwards. We will also be emailing each one of you directly. That named point of contact will email you with all their details in case you have any further questions. If you do feel like you want a further demonstration from myself, then again, please inform that team member that contacts you. I'd be more than happy to do wider demonstrations to the rest of your teams. And then if you want to know about price, we do work on a banding model for this system. Again, you can speak to the digital sales team about that. But thank you ever so much for your time today. Any questions that have been asked throughout, again, we will try and get back to you. And I hope you've enjoyed it and you log on to some of our other webinars and potentially hope to meet some of you soon. Thank you very much.